A record day on Wall Street with the Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P 500 all closing at new highs. The moves coming after two major events. The election and Fed decision are now behind us. And joining us now is Dryden Pence, Pence Capital Management CIO. Dryden, always good to see you, sir.
Great to see you. Happy to be here.
So let's start right there. What do you make of the action we're seeing? What's driving this, and does it continue?
The short answer is, one thing we know for sure, we're not going to have a tax increase. So tax increases turn into tax cuts, and that's going to help earnings going forward. So I think when you take a look at 2025, 2026, and out there, you had this circumstance where there was some uncertainty, right? That maybe we would get a 28% corporate tax rate. Well, that was going to pull $8 to $13 off of earnings, 700 points. Well, that's gone. So now we move tax increases turn into tax cuts. And now we have less regulation, we have lower interest rates, we have all of these things that stack up to being really accretive to earnings to companies, particularly people that make things. And so we think that earnings are going to be much better in 2025 than they actually were in 2024. So we see a further increase.
What about the stuff on the other side of the ledger, however? Things like tariffs, potentially. Things like mass deportation that could be inflationary. And ballooning deficits, which the people we're talking to more and more are raising that as an issue.
Sure. Well, let's take them in order. So with regard to tariffs, we've seen this story before. Right? During the first Trump administration, people brought up tariffs and those things. But actually, part of the net effect of that is you see more onshoring of companies. You see people moving things, like Steve Madden even said they're moving things back. You see people moving things back to the United States. Well, that helps employment here. We have more jobs coming into the United States, and as you see more jobs, we have 6.7 million more people working now than we did years ago.
But again, still inflationary.
It's inflationary, but not so. So last time we had it, we didn't have tremendous inflation from it. It was small.
The backdrop's pretty different now than it was.
But I think that from our standpoint, you might see some increasing in prices, but I also think that the big message here is it kind of depends on what sector.
And by the way, Steve Madden is not moving from China to the U.S.
They're not moving from China. They just moved. The article came out and they said
to a different place. They're moving to
China. They're moving to a different, but they're moving out of China. But the other, you're exactly right. But the point I'm trying to make is that while tariffs may create some challenges and increase prices, when we look at what we unleash here in the United States, I'm going to talk AI here for just a second, it's not just the infrastructure of AI, but it's the implementation of AI. AI, the companies that take that on, they increase labor productivity. And increasing labor productivity is the best way to reduce inflation. So I think that when we begin to step away from an immediate panic about worrying about tariffs, and we take a look at how is this going to help transform and support the U.S. economy going forward, then I think that you can see increased labor productivity. Increased labor productivity lowers inflation. We get more out of every unit of labor, and I think that is very positive on a long-term basis. And you take that, you take lower interest rates, you see increased margins for companies, and that's going to be supportive of the stock market.
Dryden, here's another political question for you, what if Republicans take control of both chambers of Congress, right? I'm just wondering what impact would you, or do you look at the moves we've seen and you think maybe you think the market's already sniffed that out?
Well, we looked at the election from the standpoint it was really important for the Republicans to keep the Senate so we wouldn't have this tax increase. Now, if they get the House, and they may get the House by 2, right? I think that hopefully if the Republicans cannot shoot themselves in the foot, because they've done that in the past, right? You had this far-right group of them that tend to do that. But if they can actually move forward on cleaning up regulations, on moving forward on bringing in, lowering the cost of government, right, and being some efficiencies, that's going to help us with the deficit. So you've got this balancing, right? Right. Are we going to, tariffs could slow down trade, tariffs could have there's some negative effects there. But what's the balancing of the positive side of that, of increasing government efficiency, lowering some of our cost of government from those things, taking a look at the promise of all the technology that we have, that we begin to make things just more efficient all the way around. Those things can help us on a very long-term basis with lower taxes, lower government spending. Let us focus on building out the infrastructure of this country that allows us to have very efficient job growth. I mean, this is the thing that I think people were missing and why we didn't have a recession. From COVID, right, we've added 6.1 million more jobs than we had. We added the entire labor force of Illinois. We've added to the GDP, if you do the math, it's the equivalent of adding France, right? The 7th largest economy in the world. So when you think of that, if we unleash that and we allow the growth to occur inside this country, we're in probably a better situation where, what's the problem with the immigration issue, right? We bring the mass deportations. But the portion is not necessarily against immigration, it's against illegal immigration. It's against undocumented immigration.
Those people are working.
They're working. Some of them are and some of them aren't. But I think the important thing is beginning to try to get control of our labor force so that they become actually part of the system as opposed to a sideline of the system. So I think that's a very important thing to look at. We need a system that brings the promise of America to everybody, but does it in such a way that they're part of the program. Because when you have all of the illegal stuff and these kind of things, they actually become forced into an underclass, which is not what people want. It's not the promise of this country. So I think that
So we should let everybody in legally then?
We should have no. What I mean is we should have that's fair. We should have a much better legal immigration system in the country because we have a dearth of talent. The United States of America creates more jobs than we have people. We create jobs in the United States. We create jobs in China, we create jobs in Mexico, we create jobs all over the globe. And it's just about bringing those, the ones that are most valuable into the United States. So that's why you see this onshoring thing. So I'm not afraid of the tariff regime. It didn't derail, it wasn't the end of the world last time, and I don't think it's going to be this time.
All right. Dryden, good to see you. Thanks for
Dryden.
coming in. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.